Welcome back, YouTube. My name is TayBikes28, and we are live once again here in the Toronto Huskies franchise. And I am excited to get into this thing with you guys. As you guys well know, here in the Toronto Huskies franchise, I am excited and I am super stoked to get this thing rolling. But first things first, I gotta make sure my audio is all good. And it sounds like my audio is good, so we should be able to get jumping right into this thing. We got some playoff matchups here. Well, I shouldn't say playoff matchups, but could be playoff matchups here in Week 14 as the playoff race is in full swing here in the Toronto Huskies year 3 of the franchise. And I cannot wait to see if we can compete with some of these playoff teams or possible playoff teams moving forward, because this here Week 14 matchup has two 7-5 teams. Your Huskies sitting at 7-5, as well as a couple of other individuals with the Denver Broncos sitting at 7-5. And we also have a few other teams also at 7-5, which we will go ahead and look at the standings real quick. And for those of you that are new here, let me just real quick do a just glimpse over as to what is this franchise. I'll look at the roster real quick for you guys while I'm talking about this. Won't go in deep detail like I usually do, but more or less the Toronto Huskies is a sim-based franchise where what we do in this franchise is I don't play the games, okay? So I have no bearing on the outcome of the game. I am essentially a commentator, a team builder. So I put the teams together and then I watch what happens. So what that means is you guys can actually affect this series just as much as I can. So if you guys put your input in the comment section as to who we should draft, who we should sign, and various things like that, then I will go ahead and utilize that information to hopefully make this just as much your team as it is my team. And this Husky squad is very young, as you can see. Got a couple of key veterans like Ryan Kerrigan and a few others, but it is a very young roster for the most part. And what is exciting is that this Huskies team, and what's different about this franchise, is that since it's sim-based, you still, despite it being sim-based, still get to see every single play of every single game. The difference is it is the CPU versus CPU, and I am simply commentating over what is happening on screen. And so what that means is that it is much more of a team-building emphasis than anything else. So that is what we are trying to build here in the Toronto Huskies franchise, is a major team emphasis or team building emphasis in this franchise. So as you can see, that is pretty much what the Huskies franchise is. Now let's go ahead and look at the standings real quick. This is, in fact, episode 50. That's right, episode 50. Crazy to think that it is already that far along, but here we are, still going strong here, 50 episodes in. So as you can see here, you have a slew of various teams in the NFC battling for playoff spots, few in each division it seems like. However, in the AFC, which is what we're focused on, we have a couple of teams in each division that seem still in line to possibly be in playoff contention. Really, anyone who is 5-7 or better are all still in it, technically. Now, the 5-7 teams have a much tougher way to the playoffs, like the Kansas City Chiefs here, but that doesn't mean that they're completely out of it. So as you see, we have a couple of teams here, including the Broncos, who we're facing today in the AFC West, and we have the AFC East here, a few teams at 6-6. Really, the Jets are the only team there that are out of it. And then the AFC South, where we reside here, we are second in our division and a couple games ahead of the Titans and Texans, so we feel pretty good about that. It's really a two-team race, it feels like, in the AFC South. And then the North, you have a couple of squads here. The Steelers are out of it, but every other one still technically has a chance to make the playoffs. Bengals probably have a longer shot than the others, though. So right now, your Huskies are in a good spot. They are competing for a playoff spot here in Week 14 and have a massive game here, because if we are able to take down the Broncos in Week 14, that means that we have a tiebreaker over one of the other teams who are in the playoff race and wild card race, because there's a chance we might end up having to slip in with a wild card instead of winning our division. But we will still see if we can win the division. We have a couple of weeks here, and that includes another game in our division in Week 17 against the Titans. But with all of that in mind, we do have a important game here that we need to jump into and go ahead and get this thing underway. And as you see, the Denver Broncos, they have a handful of players who you... Actually, let's go ahead real quick before we jump into this game. Let's look at their roster so I can show you guys some of the players that this Broncos team has that we'll be facing today. I showed you our roster, so now it is time to show off our opponent. They have a couple players in the 90s, including some familiar names like Justin Simmons and Cortland Sutton, as well as Von Miller, who is still there. But their quarterback right now is Jameis Winston, and Drew Lock as the backup.